Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for Tuesday, June 11, 2024. It's 9:03 a.m. My name is Ty Metzer, Chair of the Board. To my left, Vice Chair Commissioner Wayne Fournier, Commissioner Gary Edwards, Commissioner Emily Klaus, and Commissioner Carolina Mejia participating virtually. For public virtual attendance, may follow along on Thurston County YouTube channel where this meeting is live streamed and archived. We have County Manager Leonard Hernandez and Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder here. And we have 2 hours to go through primarily the meeting agenda for next Tuesday, June 18, 2024 board meetings, and then a few standing items. So if we turn to that. Anything up front, County Manager? No, jump into it, okay. Yeah. So we have a meeting being called to order, 2 p.m., Pledge of Allegiance be led by Commissioner Mejia, approval of the agenda, and then a presentation related to the 2024 art contest recognition.
Yeah, we have Taylor Rome, Executive Aide to Commissioner Mejia. We have all 3 winners of the art contest by staff voting confirmed for next week. Lisa, Lindsay, and Mia, and Tabitha.
How many submissions total?
We had just over 50 submissions, and over 100 staff were able to come in last Thursday and Friday and place their votes.
Awesome.
All right, any questions on that?
Chair, I just want to say,
I just want to add to that currently all of them are posted on Facebook. So if anybody's watching and wants to go vote for the People's Choice, please go online and you can vote on what is displayed on our Facebook page.
How long does that last?
This week, right?
This week.
Yep. Okay.
People's Choice Awards.
Yes.
And you can check out all the art. That's an awesome option. County Manager.
yeah, I just want to thank the team and Taylor and Matthew for taking the lead on putting this together. It was wonderful to see staff walking by, getting pulled in, and really enjoying the opportunity to not only submit art. We do at this table have a hidden artist in Rob Gelder. I saw some of his work.
You had some good stuff, Rob.
That was cool. It was pretty neat. So I think it's just a wonderful thing that they spearheaded and worked through the challenges of finding space in this building in a busy time. But I think they deserve a round of applause for their hard work and leadership.
Cool. Okay. Then opportunity for public to address the board as usual. County Manager update. Anything you're planning to?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Okay. We'll start with the consent items. We have 3A through 3K proposed. Item 3A is sheriff item, single source purchase grappler system. And do we have a sheriff's office rep? You know, the commissioners are familiar with this item, but
Yeah, I think if I recall, I spoke to him about it briefly, but I think they got additional money from like loss prevention or risk management to buy more. So they were coming back to ask for the single source approval again to buy the addition. I think it's additional.
from the same source. Nicole Martinez?
Yes, Nicole Martinez, Budget and Fiscal Manager. I worked with the Sheriff's Office on this item. You are correct, Commissioner. This item was before you for a single source for star chasers and grapplers. Through the risk pool, the Sheriff's Office was awarded additional funding. And so this item is before you again for single sourcing for additional grapplers in association with the risk pool money that they received. So it is similar in nature, but it's coming before you again for that reason.
Okay, any questions from the board?
And then the ones that they're still in a queue to get the ones that we'd ordered previously. They hadn't received those yet.
Okay, seeing nothing. Let's go to 3B. HR, resolution for pilot recruitment incentives program for Thurston County Sheriff's Office Corrections Bureau. And here's the HR team.
I'm Maria Ponte, HR Director. And today, the items B and C are related to the Sheriff's Office recruitment incentives policy. The first one is for the Corrections Bureau. It's new, and the reason the Sheriff's Office wanted to start this pilot is because the one for their sheriff's deputies was so successful. So in this case, we're requesting that you adopt the resolution and policy that would allow the sheriff's office to provide $25,000 bonus and installments for lateral corrections deputies, along with lead banks. Do you have any?
Chief Mancias is here. Anything you want to add? We've had extensive briefings to the board on these programs, but if you'd like to add anything.
No,
I think he's here for the grappler.
yes.
Oh,
Here for
okay.
the next piece. So-
Okay, well, we just actually hit the grappler
Oh,
one.
okay.
We'll double back, so
Okay.
so hang tight. Questions from the board on the incentive programs? Okay, and let's just real quick, we had, Nicole basically had let us know, and Commissioner Fournier, that you guys got some additional money from, why don't you just tell us?
Yes, that's correct, Commissioners. The Sheriff's Office has received about $39,550 from Risk Management last month. The month before, in the end of April, we did a sole source purchase for the 6 grappler systems. That totaled about $48,000, a little over $48,000. We did the process for the sole source. They are the only manufacturer of those, so everybody is pretty much aware that it's the system where the bumper goes down and it grabs a hold of the rear axle tire of the cars. So Risk Management was able to get us a grant for $39,500. We're asking for an additional sole source approval to purchase 4 more grapplers and 15 additional nets that are just be like a stockpile. That would bring our total purchases up to 10 systems total for the Sheriff's Office.
Any questions? Chief, okay, I think we're good.
Perfect.
All right, then let's go to 3D.
I'll leave you. The next one
So
is
item
well,
C is for
C.
the, to extend the sheriff's lateral program for deputies. So that one was approved by the board in January. We wanted to do about a 5-month review. We've done that and provided some of the data showing the success of the program. And this is to extend it through December 31st of 2024. And it would align with the Corrections Bureau, which would also end at the end of the year unless the board wanted to extend.
Questions? And now they'll both be aligned to the end of the year.
Now they'll be aligned, so when we come together,
And
we
we'll
can have
figure
a
out where we're going.
discussion and compare like which program, if they've been both successful or if one's been more successful than the other.
Thank you for working on that, Maria, on the alignment. I think that was important.
Anything else? Okay, good to go. All right, then let's go to 3D. Also an HR item, resolution for Amendment 1 to the 2024 position control schedule.
Well, thank you, Commissioners. Tara Wickline, Compensation and Benefits Manager. This resolution actually goes along with the other Amendment 1 resolutions that you will hear about later. What this resolution does is it changes position control to reflect the changes that the Commissioners approved through the Amendment 1 budget process. This year, it's primarily extending end dates for some of, I believe, like the Blake positions.
So this is just kind of this just kind of encapsulates decisions we've made at other times.
Right, yes.
So into this.
For the request that.
There's no
that we're
new
brought
action really of the board by adopting this. It just,
Correct.
okay,
Not a new action, it's just codifying the conversations leading up to this point.
yeah. Any specific questions from the board? Okay. Then let's go to item 3E, also HR resolution reclassify position, education and outreach specialist 2 to program manager within auditor's office.
Before they jump in, Chair, just say on items E, F, G, and H, these items were coming as one item in the past, and they actually didn't have the position detail. So HR is working to create more clarity to the positions. We think we can, in the future, get them in one item and just have the action explain the positions. But I appreciate your effort at hearing the commissioner's request for more clarity in each item, and for doing that, I'll go ahead and hand over to you to walk through item E.
Thank you. Okay, so item E, that is the one from the auditor's office. They're requesting to reclassify an education and outreach specialist 2 to a program manager. According to the auditor's office, this position requires higher level duties. They handle outreach with several different programs throughout the community, and that is where this request is stemming from. This particular request would have a potential impact, actual annual amount here, of up to $14,504 annually, if the commissioners were to approve this. Any questions about this request?
Questions from the board?
I guess the only thing I'd ask about this is, so that's the top if the person was gonna top out. And the only effect it's gonna really have on things is next year's baseline. Kinda.
Right,
to
yes,
the
when we
baseline budget.
essentially sync up positions and benefits in the next biennium.
Okay, then let's go to 3F, resolution to reclassify legal assistant 2 to paralegal 1 within prosecuting attorney's office.
Okay, so this is another request from a department that is essentially, they're trying to align the position with the duties that are required at this moment in time. With this request, this is a request that is funded at least partially by Thurston Mason Behavioral Health. The total impact expected is about $8,345 in the subsequent biennium.
Commissioners, may I add some information to these requests before you?
Yes, ma'am.
I've worked really closely with Tara to put together a sheet before you guys that includes information about the positions, and then also there is a financial impact section and a budget impact section. If you don't have that attachment, we can make that available to you. Inside the financial impact section, it speaks to what the increase or decrease in expenditures associated with the reclassification would take place this year. That does not change the authority level that the department has in that class, in that area. So, for instance, if there is $2 million in the department's budget for positions within that fund, they still have to live within that authority. However, this change would allow them to spend more within that authority. What it also would do was impact the budget going forward. So next year, when we realign the budget with what is actually happening, it would increase their authority level beyond, say, that $2 million amount. So you have two sections in the sheet that speak to the financial impact and one to the budget impact. It also includes what fund would be impacted and if there would be offsetting revenue to any of the expenses that are being presented before you. So the item right now that we're speaking about, this reclassification, it is housed in the general fund. However, it would be offset by a rate per case. And so this way, the total impact is not to the general fund. And I'll pause there.
Rob getting
Yeah,
this.
we'll get that document. So the total impact's not to the general fund, but part of the impact's to the general fund.
Right, so you would see the expense in the general fund, you would see the increase in the budget, the expense level in the general fund, but there would be revenue associated with it.
Commissioner Mejia?
Thank you. So just to clarify a couple of things. So these are new positions being requested. We haven't seen these before, correct?
No, these are reclassifications of existing positions.
So did we go, what I'm trying to say is, did we go through these positions in the budget amendment?
No, we did not.
So these are new requests of reclassifications.
Yes,
That is
that's
correct.
correct, Commissioner.
They're new or they're ones that we delayed on from the fall?
No, these are new. They're not part
I
of.
know the auditor one we just did is an older one. The one we just did, 3E, we've been talking with the auditor about that for a
There's
long
been
time.
talks about it. It hasn't been brought before you before.
Hasn't been brought before us before, but requests were made in the fall and we decided not to address them until
That's
this
fair.
year. So that's what Commissioner
Yeah,
Mejia, I
this-
think,
this
is
one
talking
is-
about.
So it sounds like there's a blend.
It's not new to the department making it, it's new to us because we basically kicked them into this year.
This
But the,
education.
so, yeah, so I guess that applies to the auditor's office, but to the next two
I believe.
on the, and I'm jumping ahead, I know, but, those, I haven't seen those before, and I do not remember those being brought in front of the board beforehand. Is that correct?
Commissioner, I would agree, yes.
Okay, so I'm confused. The last time we did a batch of reclasses, which was just 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I can't remember, but I remember it being said that there were like 4 more that hadn't been done from the fall, from the ones that were made in the fall that we kicked forward. These are not those 4?
So let me see if I can explain. So previously, we were doing the class and comp project, and there was a moratorium per se of reclassifications. Some of them came through budget. We kind of suspended those till we, got direction. When the board said thumbs up, bring those before us. They also lifted per se that moratorium. And so we have been working through, I'm gonna call it that backlog from 2023. And also starting to receive reclassifications requests. And in many cases, people were thinking about it. They just were honoring the request from the county not to put these forward until we got through the class and comp project. So I think we've worked, and maybe there's 1 or 2 here from, I'm gonna call it the backlog, and now we're getting into those new requests.
So it is, as Commissioner, Chair Menzer mentioned, there's a blend currently in front of them. Okay,
And the document that Nicole's referring to, is that?
we're getting that together right now.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards.
And I guess this comes back to, there's no new budget authority, but it does raise the baseline for next year.
That is correct.
Yeah, Commissioner Mejia.
I guess I'm just gonna raise concerns right now. We just went through our budget amendment process and we saw kind of where we're at. And the reality of the matter is that we're not in a great financial position, and we still haven't even, gotten done with negotiations on one end, right? And I'm concerned that even though it's not an impact to this year, it's going to be a raise to the baseline in future years. And not really seeing the financial impact. I mean, for me at this time, I'm going to request that these be moved from consent agenda because I'm just not comfortable.
Is that E through H?
Yeah, E, F, G, and H.
Okay, well, I think we should look at, did you have something?
I have a question for Maria or Tara. The positions in the prosecutor's office, are those currently on a temporary pay increase? Or are those
I do not
different?
believe so.
It's not these ones? Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, what we could do is take these items and I understand what Commissioner Mejia's concern is, considering that there is still a challenge with our overall budget. We can provide more context as to what this does to that baseline and provide a separate briefing if that's the will of the commission.
Well, I guess, when we consider these as part of the budget, we have the department head or elected official explaining to us the significance and importance. I've talked at great length with the auditor about 3E, so I was good there. I mean, because at least I knew what it was about. And now you're saying there's new ones, and we don't even know what the rationale is, and there is a budget impact in the future. So I guess I'm just wondering, why would we Why would we throw a brand-new reclass on a consent agenda with no explanation to the board of what the business case is for it? That seems odd. I don't think I've ever, that's why I got confused as to what kind of reclass is this? Because I don't think anyone's ever just thrown a reclass on consent and not told the board why we're doing it.
I do think the information that the assistant county manager is printing for you will give some
We'll
clarity.
have some of that?
Yes.
But to your point, the sensitivity of reclasses, I think in HR, thank you. If I'm wrong, but you were dealing with that pent-up request that were on pause. And so we need to approach these differently. We absolutely can by creating more context and understanding and not just bringing these requests through after HR reviews them.
And I think, in terms of trying to streamline this process, and, we've had discussions about bringing them in as a bundle, and we had them all together, and so now we've broken them apart and providing you some of the context for the request. Previously, the department heads and elected officials would come and talk to you about the position, and so now that's kind of shifted, and so I think it's might be why you feel like there's a gap, but historically, the reclasses have come through consent agendas.
Well, this
Outside
is,
of budget.
this is helpful, just,
Okay.
I mean, at least it gives me a little background, and I hadn't seen these, so.
Yeah, and that's new, so we are, again, trying to work through a process to help you make your decisions, and so we are willing to adapt it and provide you whatever information, and if it needs to be outside of the agenda setting, we can certainly work on that.
And if I may add to the process, it was my suggestion to separate them. HR did have them all together. Because they were on different funding sources, there might be different decisions that you would want to make, but that's part of the process and we can adjust that as you guys see fit.
Appreciate that.
The other thing I would add on process, this also gives opportunity during the budget process to look at how we consider reclasses, and there is an impact in the future. And so a decision that you make today will impact the budget in the future, as Commissioner Edwards has alluded to. And so maybe there's opportunity to discuss absorbing even in the future an increase and not allowing that budget to increase. So these are things in the future that we can discuss during the budget process to help with clarifying or keeping the budget whole and not increasing it throughout the year on these type of requests.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say thank you to staff for bringing this all together. We've been postponing this for the last 6 months or so, and I think it's finally coming to fruition, and that, I don't know, to me, it makes sense, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and so looking at, so we looked at E, where we were looking at F. There's basically F and G are prosecuting attorney's office. Item H is a public defense, which is actually, if I read this right, a decrease in financially speaking. And you, each of these have been reviewed by HR in terms of the appropriateness of the job specifications and all of that piece of it, so I get that. So, is it, I guess I'm gonna turn to Commissioner Mejia, is it all four that you would like removed, or is it F and G, or some of them are
Just the new ones.
okay, which would be F,
Yes.
G, and H, maybe? Okay, and the board's got these information sheets which give some background, and probably we'll have some follow-up discussion next Tuesday.
Yeah, Chair, the clerk is working on a process with the agenda setting to be able to get the information a bit more in advance, so that by the time we get to this meeting, you've had several days with the full packets electronically with the attachments that you can access. And so we are putting something together for your review after we got some input from some of the directors, but we're looking forward to creating a little bit more space and time, as some of you have requested, just to review things.
Okay, any other, for this morning's purposes, any other questions, discussion on items 3E through 3H? No? Okay, thank you. We'll go to 3I, which is Emergency Services Contract Award for an underwater remotely operated vehicle for Thurston County Dive Team. I think we touched on this last week. Did it get kicked a week or something?
Good morning. Good morning,
Todd.
Commissioners. Ben Miller, Todd Emergency Services. Just real quickly, excellent memory. I did also want to respond to, I do have a few packets here that are just images of the underwater vehicle. What you did approve previously was that we go out to RFP, and now we're coming back with the results of that RFP.
Okay,
Sweet.
And also, just after this meeting, there'll be an electronic link to the
Xbox
vendor.
controller, not a PlayStation controller?
Yes, it is an ROV
Because
controller.
there were problems with PlayStation controllers in the last year.
With that, I just want to run through a couple quick bullet points. As noted, the board previously approved the issuance of an RFP for the underwater remotely operated vehicle for the Sheriff's Office dive team. The RFP was posted 2 weeks in the Olympian and closed on June 5th at 4 p.m. 2 responses were received through that process and were scored by the Sheriff's Office dive team and emergency management staff. This one was selected as the responsive bidder into that process. The total cost is $82,780, and this will be incorporated into the fiscal year 20 state Homeland Security Program grants that have already been appropriated into emergency management budget. So at this, we are asking your permission to award the contract.
It's nice that it has a tether. It's a good thing.
anything else regarding this item? Board? Looks like, good.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, 3J, Public Works, set public hearing to consider contract with Shredding Systems, Inc. for removal of the existing stationary compactor and purchase and installation of a new solid waste stationary compactor. Jennifer Walker.
Good morning, Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. The item that will be before the board for consideration on June 18th is a request to set a public hearing for Tuesday, July 30th, 2024 at 3:30 p.m. It is to consider entering into a contract with Shredding Systems, Inc., who we refer to as SSI, for the removal of the existing stationary compactor and purchase and installation of a new stationary compactor at the Waste and Recovery Center in Lacey. So a little bit of background, the Solid Waste Division operates 3 facilities that generate that manage the solid waste generated in the county. The work operates as the main transfer station, accepting municipal solid waste from municipal, commercial, and self-haul public customers. The facility is operated under contract with Republic Services. All solid waste is directed to a transfer building, the transfer station, where waste is placed on a tipping floor for compaction into shipping containers and transported by rail to a regional landfill for disposal. The average annual tonnage of waste per year is approximately 250,000 tons, which tends to increase each year. Our current compactor was installed in the summer of 2017. The average lifespan for those contractors is 8 to 10 years. So we are at a point where we are needing to replace that, especially with the volume that's increased. In the last couple of years, we have experienced some failures with the compactor, and which included leaking seals and problems with the electronics and power supply. Public Works has a need to replace that compactor with a new compactor that can process the large volumes of waste received for that facility, which is open 361 days a year. The scope of the work for the compactor replacement includes 2 phases. The first is the removal of the existing compactor, designated on-sites of the existing compactor, including all ancillary equipment, maintenance and repair, and transport to a designated on-site storage. And the second phase of that is to purchase and install a new stationary compactor and ancillary equipment along with a multi-year warranty. The estimated cost is approximately $3 million. The current compactor will be retained for potential future use and backup operations. The procurement is being managed in accordance with RCW 3658090, governing contracts with vendors for solid waste handling systems, plants, sites, or facilities. The procurement was conducted using a competitive request for proposal process that allows for evaluation of proposals and selection of the vendor that meets the operational needs and delivers the greatest value to the public. One proposal from Shredding Systems, Inc., which is SSI, of Wilsonville, Oregon, was received on February 13th in response to the RFP advertised in the Olympian and posted on the Thurston County Contracting Opportunities webpage on November 24th, 2023 and December 8th, 2023. SSI's proposal was evaluated and scored and determined acceptable to meet the operational needs. Pursuant to this same RCW 3658090, a public hearing is required prior to entering into a contract with SSI. So Public Works will be requesting the board set a public hearing for Tuesday, July 30th to consider entering into a contract with SSI. And then all contract expenditures will be funded through revenues from solid waste tipping fees. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I have a clarifying question on the timeline. Is this something that, because I remember we approved something having to do with the compactor earlier this year. Was that just to like go out and find a contractor, and now we're having a public hearing about this specific contractor? Is that
Yes,
what?
it was, it gave authorization for us to do a request for proposals.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Good memory, Commissioner.
Oh, I remember everything about Public Works. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
How long have we had this compactor?
2017 it was installed.
Okay, and you were saying the,
Average life expectancy is 8 to 10
10
years.
okay, and we're gonna keep this one because it's still functional, as you said, it's some kind of a backup?
Yes. Yes, because when we've had the compactor go down, I don't know if the board will remember, but we have solid waste. We have that waste that piles up and then continues to pile outside of the building, which is problematic and puts us at risk with the permit that we have there because of stormwater drainage. There's also risk of fire, combustion, and so when our compactor is down, it is difficult for us to handle the throughput and the volume of waste that comes through. So we have to load that into top containers. You don't get compaction. Sometimes we have challenges with getting those top containers. So it just impacts the whole flow downstream when that happens.
I do remember that. Okay, any other questions for Jennifer?
I just mentioned, that's a very thorough explanation of what you're doing. I can't come up with a question. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Finally, 3K is the auditor list for the week of June 3rd. Any questions for staff at this juncture? No. Okay. Central Services is up next, 4A, resolution and call for sealed bids for Thurston County infrastructure upgrades.
Richard joining us? Come on up. Good morning.
Richard King, Capital Project Manager. So this is gonna be the call for sealed bids for the construction work at the Family Juvenile Court Center and the Thurston Correctional Facility. It will be the replacement of the failed PLC out at the FJC as well as the intercom system. And then at Thurston County Correctional Facility, it is the replacement of the entire camera system from analog to IP based. So I'm here for any questions.
I'm hearing none. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
4B, resolution and call for sealed bids for building number 3 roof replacement project.
Thomas Tremke, Capital Project Manager. We're requesting approval to advertise for sealed bids for the replacement of Building 3 roof at our main campus. This is a replacement of an existing roof that was last replaced in 1992. It's torch down roof, we're going to replace it with an EPDM as a recommendation from our consultant. It's approximately $500,000 for the replacement.
What does EPVM mean?
I knew you were gonna ask that. It's a type of,
One of those membrane roofs.
it's a single-ply membrane.
It's a lot more durable, right?
They got different, there's ETPM, TPO, one's white, the EPDM is black. It's like, kind of like an inner tube for a tire. It's that's how the consultant said to replace, not to replace, but repair it. If you can patch a tire on a bicycle, you can patch the roof. So he feels it's more durable for the type of installation we're doing.
Building reserve funds.
Yes, that's what we're currently scheduled to fund it with, but we are looking at other options to fund it.
Commissioner Mejia?
So I'm very familiar with the roof in Building 3. I'm wondering though, we have this pending conversation on how we're going to move into the future, right? And I'm just wondering if all of these conversations should be aligned instead of us getting it like piece by piece, and instead having this full conversation on what we're going to do with the buildings in the future in like one session.
So, yeah, in response to the commissioner's comment, that is a good perspective. I think what this does, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, it allows you to actually go out and solicit, is that correct?
Solicit bids, yes.
Right. So it's the pre-work before we actually commit to any funding. We can definitely roll this in. I think what the team is doing, they're trying to be sensitive that they want to get things lined up without going ahead of that briefing, so that if the board decides to continue with the remodel, that they haven't lost any time and the window to do the work in the warmer months.
Yes, drier months.
That makes sense. And there's probably a likelihood that no matter what we do, this type of thing has to be done regardless, right?
Correct. I mean, we have ongoing leaks and our patches are on patches, so.
Yeah, the roof is, as Commissioner Mejia says, she's very familiar with probably all the challenges that they face there.
To be honest, I'm kind of surprised that that the price is as low as that, just given that all my neighbors tell me it's like $40,000 to replace their roof on a tiny house.
Don't jinx it, Commissioner Menser.
I'm like, a big building, I would expect, might be more than that, so. But, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go on to then 5A, 2024-25 budget amendment number 1.
Yeah, and is coming on down of the dugout to join us here.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Nicole Martinez, Budget and Fiscal Manager. I'm here today for discussion and decisions regarding adjustments to the First Amendment for the 24-25 budget. Amendment 1 encompasses adjustments such as technical corrections, rectifying errors and omissions, and incorporating unanticipated revenues. Subsequently, the 24-25 budget was officially adopted on December 15th of 2023. Subsequently, on April 17th, I presented proposed amendments to the budget, and on the April 29th work session, received decisions on changes to the 24-25 budget. Additionally, I came before you on June 3rd to present for you review and approval of 3 adjustments to decisions that were made on April 29th. The first adjustment presented was to remove the transfers that moved general fund appropriation from the sheriff's, law enforcement, public defense, and prosecuting attorney to the public safety sales tax funds. The second presented was to approve change requests from offices and departments intended for public safety sales tax fund. These requests were resubmitted to request general fund authority. These 2 adjustments were presented to allow the budget office to examine various aspects related to the structure of the public safety sales tax fund more closely, and to collaborate more closely with the auditor's office, the sheriff's office, prosecuting attorney's office, and public defense. The third adjustment presented was to implement the auditor's recommendations to repay the REIT 1 fund. All three adjustments were approved to be included in Amendment 1. To highlight the major inclusions in the amendment, $2 million transfer from the general fund to the roads fund, a $1.9 million transfer from the general fund to the REIT fund, and a $1.6 million hold for the FJC Security Improvements Project. This totals $5.5 million. These adjustments to the amendment were made in response to the increase in the 23 general fund ending fund balance beyond the projected amount during the 24-25 biennium budget adoption. During the biennium, it was projected the general fund ending fund balance would be $33.5 million. The actual ending fund balance is $38.8 million. This is an increase of $5.3 million beyond what was projected. The reasons for these increases are: 1, there was an increase in interest revenues beyond budget, ARPA loss revenue transfer, and also there was an increase in ARPA public sector workforce revenues. And then expenditures estimated coming in were less than projected. So departments and offices, we all projected what we thought would be our expenses in 2023, and they came in less than that. Collectively, these reasons provided a $5.3 million ending fund balance above what was projected. So the amendment includes a total increase in expenditures from the general fund of about $7.8 million and an increase of $22.4 million in all other funds in 2024. And in 2025, there is a $1.2 million increase in the general fund and a $1.3 million in all other funds. Thank you. Any questions?
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
One of the things you mentioned was dollars to the road fund.
Yes, sir.
And I've got maybe an unrelated question, but in the material that DNR, I think Commissioner Fournier gave us a list of that had come out of DNR about logging. And we apparently get money from that logging to go to roads, county roads. So is that a regular dollar amount, or is it just once in a while?
So
How does that fit? I'm just curious. Are we getting it, or are we not getting it? Are we backloading behind it if we're not getting it?
So I can look into those questions more clearly and be able to answer that more accurately. I would just add that we do receive revenues, but to get the particulars about it, I'd have to look into it.
Because you were talking about a couple $1 million here, I think, new to the road fund just now. I didn't write down the numbers, but you went through quite a few dollar amounts there.
Because we shifted it back.
Yeah, we're trying to shift it back, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea.
With some of the extra money.
I'm wondering how the ability, whether or not we can do the job. So I guess it is a separate question. I'll just plant that seed with you, please. Yep.
Yes, so the $2 million I'm referring to is the ending fund balance in the general fund that was included in the amendment to move back into the roads fund. I believe your question is about lodging, about the timber?
Yes.
And so I'd have to look into that a little bit more.
And so the 2 that's gonna go back into the road fund and the 1.9 that's gonna go back into REIT is gonna eat up our ending fund balance, that 4 million,
I guess it will decrease the ending fund balance again.
Reallocates, it doesn't,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
it just puts it where it should be. Like,
Okay.
ending fund balance confuses me. Another word could be surplus. Is that an appropriate word, or is that a little too generous?
I would say the appropriate road, it really is ending fund balance.
Okay.
So if I may entertain the statement here.
Hold on, but to your point, it's the same concept. It's so they budgeted a certain amount. That amount came in, but more came in, and that's the number that we're working on to get you an overview, because there's been some decisions that the commission has made in separate meetings. So we're just gonna put that into a framework, and Nicole's almost done with that.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying, and it's the same concept of those dollars. Those dollars, the commission has decided to allocate them to certain priorities, and
Yeah, you didn't spend all your lunch money, and the next day, you're gonna take that lunch money and put it back in your savings account or put it into a different account. So it's money that we didn't expect that we can put back into the road fund, or when we can use to do certain things with. So, surplus is probably a little too happy of a word to use for it, or a little too like frivolous of a word, but it's conceptually the same.
Plus has a context that we were anticipating a certain level of revenue, and then it came in higher.
Okay.
This more has to do with expenditures, and so what the departments thought they were gonna spend, they didn't spend that amount, and so that's the part that's coming back. There's accounting words that are used for it.
Yeah.
Can I ask that, we didn't talk about, so 5.8 million, 2 goes to road fund, 1.9 goes to re-one. We didn't talk when we're just doing the call for sealed bids on the camera systems, but are those projects being funded out of the general fund?
The $1.6 million for FJC,
Yeah.
that's what we're referring to. So we're holding it. So during the amendment process, it was to hold that money from the surplus that you're speaking to in case that is the source that we want to use.
We're looking
to
at
fund
other
that.
sources,
We're
but
also
looking
talking
into-
about in that bond, potentially funding it out of there, right? We lumped it in with the public safety bond, and we're also, that could be another avenue that we go, depending on, we've got, right?
That is correct. So we have two options on the table now. You've included the $1.6 million for the FJC security improvements in the bond resolution, so that is an option. And then also you've put a hold now in the amendment process in the general fund for $1.6 million. So this gives you opportunity to weigh your options and make the decision later.
what will be the decision, kind of looking at Robin, but what will be the thing that makes us choose one versus the other, and when will that happen?
We're doing some research on the background of it. It really comes down to how much funding we'll have available, and what's gonna be in the account, and that's what Nicole and Robin are working to research. So we'll be able to bring that forward hopefully soon.
Wasn't there some discussion about some grant money
There was a
possibly
third
coming
option
up?
where we asked
Yeah.
for an earmark with
There
the
you go.
federal government, and that did not
That did
pan out.
not happen.
Okay, so that
Yeah,
did
so
not.
we had
now
three
we're-
options, we
and now
lost
we're down
one,
to
now
two.
we're evaluating two.
Okay,
So
good
we're
enough.
not in a
Thank
bad
you.
place, I don't,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
but that's just with the FJC
Yeah,
thing.
not in a bad place, except for the fact that because of our structural deficit in the budget, and that's, I think, what Commissioner Mejia was referring to when she mentioned budget troubles. The fund balance that we have, which is significant, but it is being used to balance that structural deficit in years out. As a new county manager coming in, we had a really great meeting yesterday with the budget team, partly because after 12 weeks, I have a better understanding where things are at, and then their explanation of what has happened in the past, where we are today. It's our desire to come back at a different time and talk about that structural deficit, and with the commissioners to lay it out, and what does it look like over the next several years. Because that goes back to some of the decisions that then, when you have that full context, and we hope to put it out in front of you so you can see it, then you can start helping us, giving us some policy direction on how we want to present that and how we go forward for future budget discussions.
So we may get to a place where we say, we'd rather put that money in the bond and then pay it over time instead of take it all right now out of the
Exactly.
ending fund balance, because we'd rather have a little more padding.
Yep.
Yeah, and those are the decisions that we're looking at, and I appreciate your patience with me getting up to speed, because I'm also wanting to understand all the different funding sources and how they come together. And so I appreciate Robin's patience as a teacher, because she's working with Nicole and also working with me in a time where there's a lot going on. So, but we look to have that soon.
Yeah, I mean, Commissioner Edwards and he and I lived through the COVID thing, so we're very, it's like imprinted in our brains, I think, probably less so for the two new commissioners, that, it's like 90% of the needs, we have this money, to the extent that there's money, it's one-time money, and every need we have is an ongoing need, so it's this mismatch, and we're talking about, oh, we got extra money here, oh, we don't have any money, and it feels to people that are listening, like, what are they talking about? It
Like the
doesn't-
FJC thing is a one-time need,
Yeah.
one-time money, it's a little safer
Yeah,
expense.
exactly, and that's why we could even think about doing it through the general fund. But if it was 1.7 million every year for camera system replacement, that would be a big problem.
Yeah, I would liken it to, you mentioned the lunch money analogy. Our bank account is short, but we have budgeted lunch money, so we have some extra lunch money, because instead of it costing, $10, it only costed $5. That $5, what do we do with it? We put it back in the bank account to shore up the shortfall there. or do we spend it on some priority needs? And there's no shortage of priority needs right now. And that's, I think, what provides the challenge that the other commissioners had to walk through. As I'm learning, the past budget process is there are a lot of needs in this county currently.
They're selling brownies at the front of the school. You know, I got that extra $5.
Then you're gonna be hungry for the rest of the week.
Double chocolate chunk, you want one.
All right, that's good. It's a good setup for future conversations. Okay, so where were we? I took us off track there. We were at Budget Amendment 1. Any other questions for Nicole on item 5A? Okay, thank you. We'll go to item 5B, contract award for official county newspaper.
Yeah, Commissioners, this item is going to approve a contract with the Nisqually Valley News to serve as the official county newspaper for legal publications. And I want to thank Amy Davis, clerk of the board, because she was able to work with the Nisqually Valley News, and I'd also like to thank them for their flexibility. There was an operational dynamic where the printing date was after this meeting, which what happens is from the approval on a Tuesday from the commissioners, then we move to publish our public notices. And with their date being earlier, it would cause sometimes a week, if not two, delay. And so taking initiative, working with the Nisqually Valley News, Amy Davis called to see if they can adjust their date, and to Nisqually Valley's credit, they were able to move their printing date, which is no small feat if you have a schedule and a cycle. But I think that shows their commitment to working with us. They were the only response in the RFP that we put out. We put out that RFP after noticing the Olympian and Nisqually the same way. And the notice was put out in the Olympian, and still Nisqually was the only responding bidder. And so that's our recommendation.
I don't have any problem with what we've done, and I thank Amy for her getting that work. I'm just curious, has anyone, do we know, did the Olympian just not want this business anymore, or they missed the deadline and screwed up, or do we actually know what
Yeah, we do know. So the Olympian is owned by a parent company, same as Nisqually. And we sent the notices to Nisqually's local office and Olympian's local office. The Olympian said, well, that notice should have went to their parent company. The local office didn't forward it over like the Nisqually did. So going forward, we now have that, but that wasn't the requirement of our notice. It was just to send it out. And so we can send it out in the future to the parent company. But at this point, Nisqually was the responsive bidder. And our notice was in the Olympian newspaper itself when we put out the RFP. So they saw it, they got a notice, and they also saw it in the paper. And
so they may bid in the future.
Yes, they may bid in the future.
This is what we have for now. Okay, any questions for staff?
That's good.
All right, let's go to 6A. CPED, Resolution for Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board Transition to Water Resources Advisory Board. We have CPED leaders here, Josh Cummings and Jeremy Davis.
Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. So Jeremy Davis, our Operations Manager, has the details on this, but I wanted to take a quick minute to provide my appreciation to the Board of County Commissioners for your very direct and clear guidance on ensuring that we honor the commissions and boards, all the volunteers that we have. And I believe that Jeremy's done a great job of transitioning the SWAB to the RAB, and you'll hear more about that, to honor the request of the board and also meet the needs of the Shoreline Master Program and other things that the board would like research on. So with that, and my appreciation to Jeremy for being inclusive to the SWAB members and in getting their input during this transition as well. So all change can be difficult, but this is, I think, going to be a really successful one. Go for it, Jeremy.
All right. Good morning, County Commissioners. Jeremy Davis, Operations Manager for Community Planning and Economic Development. And just a little bit of background before we get into the details of what the resolution would do. So we all know we transitioned from a 3-member to a 5-member Board of County Commissioners in November of last year. Throughout last fall, this spring, and now, the county's been systematically going through and reviewing all of our county boards and commissions to make sure that their mission is on purpose, and then also to reapportion the membership and the appointment for those boards and commissions. In November of last year, we came and spoke to the Board of County Commissioners regarding the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board and its mission and purpose here in Thurston County. The SWAB was originally created back in 1990, and that was to work with the county for our municipal stormwater permit and to provide some public accountability for our utility rates and how we spent them, and then also to help the county on our outreach effort. Since that time, the county has actually put together a robust education outreach program through our community planning division now, where we go through and we go to events and workshops around the county. We put out an annual utility rate newsletter, the Splash newsletter. We organize other educational workshop and trainings, and we maintain ongoing public communications. So the original mission of the SWAB is now being taken care of by staff. When we came to the board last November, the board gave the staff direction to take a look at SWAB in light of the county's recent adoption of our new shoreline management plan, which we know is under review by the Department of Ecology. In particular, the board asked us to look at how they might play into reviewing and implementing rules and such around aquaculture, monitoring, particularly around the areas of no net loss, and then also addressing sea level rise for Thurston County. And those are the three primary areas. So at the staff level, we sat down with the Public Works Department, Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board members and their chair, and took a good look at what the purpose of the SWAB was and how we might be able to transition that to a new board or commission to handle that implementation of the shoreline management plan. And I would also add the shoreline management plan itself includes language in there where it says the county may form an advisory board for this specific purpose. So this would address that purpose in the shoreline management plan. So what we thought of, we transitioned it not just to say Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board, but actually give it a new name, which has a greater purpose, and that's the Water Resources Advisory Board, which would increase the breadth of its ability to advise the county commissioners on water resources related issues, particularly around the three areas that I mentioned. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the details of what the resolution would actually do and what we would need to do to pass it.
I'm going to jump in real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Essentially, we had really smart people on the SWAB. We didn't want to lose them to transition and get this bigger mission on the SMP, the Shoreline Master Program.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're going to get into the details of how we kept these smart people and are going to do a mission that's going to be what the commissioners are asking for.
Didn't we have some real smart staff on that, working with those people?
Most definitely.
We have somebody that ecology comes to once in a while. Right?
Yep. Larry Schaffner is our MPDES coordinator, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. And he is state renowned for his work on MPDS.
And he's given us a thumbs up on this, I take it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good enough for me.
You want more process detail, commissioners?
Sure.
Okay, go for it, Jim.
I'm excited, so.
All
right.
I want to find out if I can apply to be on this committee.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the details of what the resolution does and doesn't do. So what it does do, of course, it does sunset our current Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board, and that would be all current appointments to that board. It reconstitutes it as the Water Resources Advisory Board, and there's a table of terms, just like we have at the Planning Commission resolution, or ordinance, I should say. We have a table of terms and such of office on the back of the resolution here. It would increase the membership from 9 members to 12 members. Of those 12 members, 10 of those members would be appointed by district. However, those members can be at large from anywhere in the county. So basically, each county commission will nominate 2 at-large members, okay? In addition to that, and because we wanted to make sure this board could address issues that where we may not necessarily have a resident there, we have the 2 final members that can either be a resident, someone who owns real property in Thurston County, or someone that the board feels has specific knowledge that we need to have on this particular board to advise the Board of County Commissioners, so it could be a non-resident, as long as they have that specific expertise that you see is necessary. Now, in addition to those 12 members, we have the ability in this resolution for the board to accept appointments from indigenous tribes in Thurston County who may have usual or custom use area within the county or within the tidelets of Thurston County. As we all know, the Shoreline Management Plan addresses aquaculture, which is in those tidelands. Current members that are on SWAB, and I believe we have 6 that are remaining at this point in time, can be reappointed by the Board of County Commissioners. We would expect that process to begin shortly after the 1st of July. We're not expecting to have a first meeting of the New Water Resources Advisory Board until September of this year, so it does give us several months to appoint those members to that board, to have that functioning board. Okay.
It looks like you have a question,
Yeah.
Commissioner Windsor.
I'm just waiting for, if you're going to get into like the 6 that are continuing, are they spread properly amongst the districts? Or is one district clogged up, or does two of them from one district so that commissioner doesn't need to appoint a new person?
We didn't take a very close look at their addresses of where they're at now. We can certainly do that for you for next week. But with the specific idea that in this resolution, they can be from with anywhere in the county nominated by the commissioners. So they don't have to live in your district now.
So, but then how are we gonna apportion those 6 to just one, like, to, you know what I'm saying? Like, if each of us get to appoint 2, how do we fit the 6 continuing members into that scheme?
Let us take a look at their addresses and we'll get a list of where those current members are and where they live out to your commissioner's aides.
Are they reapplying as well?
We're gonna ask them to reapply. That doesn't necessarily mean they will reapply. So
We don't really have the full
There might not be
information.
6.
That's right. That's why we're giving that space till September to work out the details of who does apply and who the commissioners would like to nominate. So this is just setting the groundwork to get that new information.
And and you hit something about tribes and it didn't stick.
Sure.
Can you say that again?
Sure, so we added a provision in this resolution where the Board of County Commissioners can accept appointments from indigenous tribes that have usual and custom use area within the bounds of Thurston County or its tidelands. And so you have our 3 major tribes, Chehalis, Nisqually, and Squaxin Island, but you may have other tribes that have usual and custom use area in our tidelands. And of course, we don't determine those, the tribes do.
Would that be in addition to the 12?
It would be in addition to the 12.
Commissioner Mejia?
Yeah, I think touching base with SWAB and seeing like who's interested in reapplying, that way the board knows. I do hope that the 6 who are currently there do reapply. I know Commissioner Menser has gone and presented to them before. I have gone and presented to them before, and they are a well-rounded group with specific expertise in relation to like stormwater. I was just very impressed with the depth of experience that each one of these volunteers brings in, and they're from different parts of the community too, and it's just such a well-rounded group that I'm excited, and then I'm just want to give like thank you to Jeremy for working through this process. I know when it first came on, everyone was kind of just like, "Wah!" So thank you so much for working through the process with SWAB. I know even the membership had a lot of questions on what's going to happen. There were a lot of concerns. They just didn't know what was going to happen, and you working with them through this process, working with the board to come to this conclusion, just, I know it takes a lot of work and a lot of updates that have to take place, so just thank you for all of your hard work.
Sure, and I'd also like to credit Ashley Arroyo, our community planning manager, and Andrew DeFobis, who also worked with SWAB on this transition.
And there will be growing pains. So expect that as we're working out how the mission is achieved and how we get folks onto the volunteer group, that there's going to be hiccups, but we know that we're going to fulfill the mission and do it well. Thank you for that appreciation.
Thank you.
We getting a new acronym?
Yes, RAB, W-R-A-B.
It's RAB. It's super RAB.
That's right.
Thanks, guys.
Anything else?
I think we're good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to 7A, Public Health and Social Services, Agreement with Monarch Children's Justice and Advocacy Center for TST funds. And Shaylin Sowers is with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shaylin Sowers, Behavioral Health Fund Program Manager with Public Health. I'm here today to present an agreement with Monarch Children's Justice and Advocacy Center for treatment sales tax funds. As you know, Monarch has a mental health therapy program that provides mental health treatment to victims of child abuse and neglect at no cost to victims. During the Amendment 1 process, $153,000 was in one-time funds for TST were approved by the board for the remainder of 2024, and this is specifically June through December, to support a clinical supervisor position for Monarch. This position will assist Monarch in addressing their current wait list of 72 by providing mental health treatment to at least 40 clients. This position will provide mental health treatment to clients on the wait list, and additionally, they will supervise an internship program of about 3 to 4 interns who will also provide treatment to clients on the wait list. The budget authority for this agreement is under Public Health Maternal Child Health Division, which is managed by Gretchen Toller. And Monarch will report quarterly program measures and other performance metrics such as their waitlist numbers to maternal child health and TST. So we are requesting that the board approve the agreement with Monarch for $153,000 and authorize the interim public health director to execute the agreement and any amendments that do not exceed 10%. And unless Gretchen has anything else to add, I'm happy to take any questions you have at this time.
I will just add, thanks, Shaylin. If I could just add, as many of you know, commissioners, our child abuse rate in Thurston County has been higher than the state average for several years. So we are really excited in our department and our maternal child health section to be working with both Shaylin through TST and Monarch on this to move forward to make sure that these children can get access to care.
I guess I'm gonna make a request from the board. This expires December 31st, 2024. Being that we're in June, I'm wondering if this contract can expire June 1st, 2025. Because I'm thinking about hiring a position in this market and making sure it's staffed, making sure 6 months is a very tight deadline. I'm not asking to increase the amount, but just to expand that timeline so Monarch has the ability to be able to actually complete the work and start working on something. 6 months is just a very tight deadline for what kind of we're requesting for them to bring someone on and to start working on this.
Commissioner Edwards, and then Commissioner Fournier.
As a follow-up to that, did the TST committee review this?
They did review the original request, which was for the 1 FTE mental health therapist and the clinical supervisor combined, and they approved those two. So, and I believe my understanding from Amendment 1 was that the board approved for just the clinical supervisor position. So they're still in support.
Thank
you. I'm interested in Commissioner Mejia's proposal. I want to thank her for her advocacy on this. This is really important stuff. You know, having met with public health recently and learning about the child abuse rates and the infant mortality rates, this is probably this is the most important type of work that public health can be doing, and I really want to see us invest more in answering those two questions.
Can someone, for my benefit, explain the timing of this? Like, is there TST money that we didn't anticipate having, or some programs underspent, or there's some pressing, like there's some timing issue with Monarch that necessitated us maybe digging deeper into TST? Why is this coming forward at this juncture?
Yes, so we presented this budget request as part of Amendment 1 as an unforeseen circumstance, and also in the terms of emergency because their wait list was growing so large. It's at 72 now. And as you may recall back from the Amendment 1 process, we talked about how some of these clients could be on the wait list for over a year, and they were asking us for some assistance and just to see if there was any possibility of TST.
And we said no.
And this was originally a request that was part of the TST package that we pulled out and deferred to a later decision-making point.
No, we
Right?
didn't pull it out of the budget amendment. It's part of the budget amendment.
No, not the budget amendment,
Oh.
the TST
Community
recommendations,
Yes,
community
yeah.
grants.
Yeah, and so we said like for what the budget amendment decision was, it was for a year. But in that year, it constitutes the end of 2024. So my request is like, let's expand that to 2025.
I'm not questioning your request. I'm questioning the whole thing.
The whole thing is,
If we said no in the budget amendment, why are we?
no, we did say yes in the budget amendment.
Okay.
Yeah. We
We said
approved this
no in the TST community grants.
at the beginning of the year.
Right.
And we shifted
Correct.
into interfaith, I
Right.
believe, and then we pushed this down to another decision-making point.
This was approved in the budget amendment, or it's going to be
Why isn't it in
approved.
the budget? Why is this separate now then?
Because it's a contract that has to happen.
Or we're just doing the contract?
Yes.
So the decision's already made within the budget amendment. Okay, Commissioner Klaus?
Correct.
Oh, that kind of answered it. I was just gonna say, if you recall the conversation about like the BHASO had a house that they didn't spend the money for last year, and we were talking about all of that. That's when we made this decision. But it sounds like you figured it out.
I think I figured it out.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I'm good. Appreciate it. Anybody else with a question on this item?
Well, how do we address Commissioner Mejia's?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
additional
Commissioner
proposal?
Mejia wants to extend just the time. Is there a good reason not to do what Commissioner Mejia is proposing?
I cannot think of a reason not to. One of their challenges that they proposed as well was the 6 months period. So if it could get extended to 12 months, I think that would benefit them greatly.
Okay, then let's amend the.
So they would amend the contract and then bring it back to us on the 18th, is that?
Can you make that amendment and have it ready for next week?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Sounds like we have concurrence on
Is
that.
Nicole here for something?
Well, just in case there was any questions, sound like you worked it out, but any questions about what was on, what was off, and what we're doing here today?
Okay. Financial piece is in the budget amendment, but we have to do this contract piece. Okay, that's just what I was, didn't quite.
Just want to make sure it's clear for all of you.
Yep, thank you. All right, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On we go to. 7B, Public Health and Social Services Affordable Housing Funding Awards. Alex Purse.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Alex Purse. I'm the Affordable Housing Program Manager in the Office of Housing and Homeless Prevention. I'm here today to ask you to approve the Affordable Housing Capital Funding Awards to fund 8 projects for a combined total amount of $5,985,969 and authorize Public Health and Social Services to issue funding award letters. So a little bit of background on this item. On January 24th, the Regional Housing Council approved issuing a request for proposals to solicit applications for capital affordable housing projects. The RFP was issued by our office on February 23rd and closed on April 5th. Funding under this RFP came from the local home fund, both county and City of Olympia home fund, the House Bill 1406, the Substitute Bill 5386, Home American Rescue Plan Act, and Home Investment Partnership Act. In total, 10 applications were submitted, requesting approximately $8.9 million. The Thurston Affordable Housing Advisory Board members reviewed and scored applications and then met on April 25th to make funding recommendations. The advisory board then presented these recommendations to the Regional Housing Council, and the RHC unanimously recommends to the board the following funding awards, the table that is provided in the AIS packet. These 8 projects are expected to support the creation of 117 new units of affordable housing, in addition to assisting in the conversion of 124 units of enhanced shelter to permanent supportive housing. So once each of these projects individually has been fully funded and met all pre-contract requirements, our office will come back to the board to request authorization to sign a contract for each award. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Alex? No questions? People good? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7C, cold and hazardous weather contracts. And Keely Marino's here.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. Here today, I'm presenting an ask that you approve contracts with 3 agencies to provide cold and hazardous weather services, including shelter and shelter-in-place activities for the 2024 program year. These related to the same RFP that Alex was just mentioning. In February of this year, we did issue a consolidated RFP, and that RFP included, in terms of homeless services, only 2 competitive elements to the homeless services, and that was for cold weather sheltering projects and for sheltering in place projects. The other awards, which we will mention here shortly, were all amendments. So the only competitive contracts were the 3 that are being presented to you today. On May 8th, the Regional Housing Council met to review the recommendations that were made around cold and hazardous weather funding, and those recommendations were approved. Subsequent to the initial recommendation of awards, the Department of Commerce issued some additional funding to our office kind of last minute. And so almost all homeless services awards were increased by 23%, including cold and hazardous weather contracts. These cold and hazardous weather contracts are going to provide funding for these programs to operate from July 1 of 2024 to June 30th, 2025. The 3 projects are for mutual aid partners, our only map to provide shelter in place activities, Interfaith Works to provide pop-up hazardous weather sheltering activities, and then for Family Support Center to provide sheltering for families during cold weather. The total amount of awards being recommended is $337,766. These funds are coming from the 5386, formerly known as House Bill 2163 funds, and local document recording fee supplemental funds that were provided by the state, as aforementioned. So we would ask that you approve these awards totaling that amount for this program year, and that you authorize the interim director of public health to execute the contracts and any amendments not to exceed 10%. Happy to take any questions.
Mr. Keeley? Nope, very thorough explanation. Thank you, Keeley. We'll stay with you for item 7D, homeless services contract amendments.
Yes. As I mentioned in the previous presentation, that we did have a consolidated RFP process. However, as this is the second year in a biennium, there were homeless services projects that were awarded in the 23-24 year, and these are the amendments to those projects. So there are, we're asking that these 55 contract amendments be approved for these homeless services activities. That's representing 16 nonprofit organizations. The combined total amount to be awarded is $15,330,146.84 for the 24-25 program year. And as mentioned, these projects, as listed below, also most of these projects received that 23% increase by that extra local document reporting fee gap funding that came from the Department of Commerce. Those that were excluded from that 23% were the local Human Services Fund. That does not come from the state. Those are not state dollars. And then also the HEN program, or the Housing and Essential Needs. That is a separate program, although it is funded through the State Department of Commerce. It is not included in that document recording fee gap funds. So there's a number of awards listed below. I will not read them for you. They're listed. I believe that you also have the contracts drafts that attached to your AIS. But we would hope that these recommendations, which were approved by the Regional Housing Council also on May 8th, be approved by you on the 18th. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Any questions? Thank you. Okay, taking us to item 7E, grant agreement for the Lost Lake Community OSS On-Site Sewer System Improvement Project. Season-long Environmental Health Division Director.
Good morning. Hi, Susan Long, Environmental Health Division Director, Public Health and Social Services. Today I'm presenting an agreement with Washington State Department of Ecology in the amount of $485,516. This grant agreement will go to the replacement of a septic system that will support 17 units at Lost Lake Community. The health department will be involved in the administrative oversight of this grant, as well as some regulatory aspects when it comes to the approval of the septic installation. The health department is looking to use this contract as a roadmap for future cooperative relationships with ecology and the Lost Lake community to replace additional systems. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Commissioner Edwards.
This is I guess a water quality issue by repairing some failing systems. Is that safe to say?
Yes, sir.
And you say this might be an example that we'll use in the future. I mean, I can think of a couple other guess, recreation areas that have questionable systems, is that what you might be referring to? Making adjustments to those?
I think that's fair to say. Additionally, there are some additional systems in this community that are also failing, and so we do currently have an application in which Department of Ecology to get some additional funds. We'll know if we are awarded those funds around July 1st to do some additional replacements. So we're hoping to do this in phases with the Lost Lake community, but I do think that this is a larger roadmap for some additional projects throughout the county.
I'm thinking of one up off of Johnson Point or something, that Johnson Point Road that's been a problem. I can't think of the name of it, but it's been there for a long while. Did you prioritize which ones were kind of the worst that we're going to address the first?
So this actually came to us, the Lost Lake community approached Department of Ecology asking for funding. And so the ecology can't give this money. It has to go to a government entity. And so we are essentially a pass through for them. But again, it is definitely something we're interested in pursuing, not only with this community, but in the future if there's funding available and ecology can support the work. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Where is Lost Lake? Roughly.
Oh gosh.
Off a reservation.
It's, you go through Nisqually Valley and kind of up off to the sheriff and I visited it the other night while we were cruising around.
District 2?
Yes.
Yeah, it's District 2.
Is it south of Lake Lacey, UGA, like toward Yale? Or?
Yes, on Reservation Road. And it's, well.
It's tucked away.
Yeah, it's tucked away there.
Yeah.
It's been there
That's
for a
the
long
name.
time.
Yes. Okay, and then is there some, okay, so maybe the answer is the community that applied, but I guess I'm wondering, is there something unique about it that qualified it for this grant? Or is this grant, can anybody with a septic problem get money from ecology? Like, what was special that got them this pretty substantial amount of money?
To be honest, Commissioner, I don't know the full history of this grant. I know we were awarded these funds last July, and we've just been working through the contract process since then, but I can certainly look into that and provide additional information next Tuesday in relation to that.
Alrighty.
I don't know what kind of systems they have, but there's a fair amount of density. And like it's kind of a trailer park type area. So.
Yeah, there's 271 units total.
But you said this is going to service 17 of those.
17 septic systems.
Correct.
All right, well, appreciate that. And that's good for today then.
Thank you.
Pretty straightforward item. Okay, then let's go to the next item, which is indicated to be a new item. 7F, contract award. Yeah. We have two new items added under Public Health and Social Services from the previous draft agenda. And 7F is contract award for development of Integrated Aquatic Vegetation Management Plans, or IVAMP, for Offutt and Pattison Lakes, and Cyanobacteria Management Plan for Lawrence Lake. Stuart Whitford.
Good morning, Commissioners. I could add a little bit about the Lost Lake project. In grand scope, there's actually tons of money available right now from Department of Ecology for septic repairs for residents and businesses. And also, I served on a committee that worked for about a year on developing a grant program that goes in parallel with that. And so now it's been so successful that we've almost expended all of the grant money for this round, and we're going to get some more in starting in 2025. So there is plenty of money available for projects like this. This project was difficult because it was considered a public works project, and we had to negotiate a contract that met both ecology requirements and our requirements and stuff, so it took quite a bit of time to get it in place. But it's exciting because this is in a high priority water quality area, and getting these things fixed and is a good thing to do. So. And Jane Mountjoy Venning led that. And the application was actually written by, I think it was a consultant that worked for the Lost Lake group, or somebody within the Lost Lake group. So it was a good partnership.
Perfect.
So this is, the request to execute a contract with Herrera Environmental Consultants for the development of integrated aquatic vegetation management plans for Offutt and Patterson Lakes and a cyanobacteria management plan for Lawrence Lake. The total contract amount is $236,000. Approximately half of that is paid for by each lake management district fund, and then the other part is $110,000 of State Department of Ecology grants. So it's a partnership with Department of Ecology. By way of history, we did 2 separate requests for proposals, one for Offutt and Patterson and one for Lawrence Lake. Herrera Environmental Consultants was a successful proposer for the Offutt and Patterson project. There were 2 responsive proposals received, and the scoring committee ranked Herrera highest, and then Herrera was also the sole responsive proposer for Lawrence Lake project. For efficiency, both projects were merged into one contract. Herrera Environmental has years of experience conducting successful lake management projects, and the 2 project leads they have selected are well qualified and experienced. Successful public engagement is critical for these projects, so the county and Herrera have agreed to a scope of work and budget, which ensures that people who would like to have input will have ample opportunity to do so, because as you know, we have a lot of interest in this project. And again, this is just a contract with Herrera. There's no work that's authorized currently to go forward, except we're going to start working on a plan to figure out how exactly to approach aquatic weed management in Offutt and Patterson and start the process of collecting water quality data and public engagement for the Lawrence Lake cyanobacteria management plan. So with that, just any questions?
Questions? So, you know, Mr. Trowbridge has been saying that we're taking this big decision, and is this what he's referring to? I mean, it doesn't, maybe he thinks this is the decision about treatments, but
well, I think,
is there a different decision he's talking about?
I think Mr. Gelder's letter to him must have been it's very understandable exactly what, you know, what's happening. And I haven't heard from him recently. I would expect to hear from him today. You know, I mean, you know, during the board hearing next week. But I would say the relationship with him has improved ever since the first time that we had an engagement with him, as he gets more information and more comfortable feeling like he's actually being listened to, which we are.
Yeah, I think everything with the lake management districts has improved. Like they seem happy. They're complimentary. The Offutt Lake Management District folks, I met with them last week, and they're excited about this decision point, and they're encouraging. And, I mean, it seems to be a good, vast improvement. And I would say the 2 of you get praise from those management district people as well.
Yeah, I would give most of the credit to Rob.
Well, that's very nice of you, but I'm sure you're deserving of a lot of it as well.
Yeah, but what I would say is that, yeah, they, just as an example, so for this contract negotiation, you know, the LMDs participated in the scoring of the contract awards, so they had a say in that directly, and then they also sat in on the actual negotiation with Herrera and had immediate say in what was. So what we're doing is we're building their trust because they have input into what exactly is in the contract. And that perhaps happened before we took it over, which would be good. But it does create a lot of extra work, you know, when you're doing that, taking comments from multiple steering committee members and stuff like that.
I think Public Works is happy too.
Yeah, it's challenging to work with the steering committees and all the expectations and stuff, and so we're just trying to be as transparent as possible.
Sorry, Rob, to the question though that the chair asked, is this the decision that Mr. Trowbridge was referring to, or is there another one? I get that the relationship is better and well done, but just for the context, especially for me being new, is this what he's been referring to as that?
This is the only decision really before the board right now that affects Patterson Lake or Offutt Lake. It is the first next step in terms of securing this contract for the contractor to develop the integrated aquatic vegetation management plan for each respective body of water.
Yeah,
And
so
that's,
these,
and that's a multiple month process.
Yeah, it's almost a year-long
yeah,
process.
it's a year or more.
So that's why
It's
I was
actually-
confused about what this big decision
Yeah,
point that he
well,
was.
yeah,
planning on
and
providing.
actually what happened is Herrera having, because, from Patterson, they actually reached out directly to Herrera when they found out that Herrera was, gonna be part of the process. And so Herrera became aware that there's gonna be a lot of public engagement responsibility here. So we actually extended the contract term to allow more time for meetings and engagement and things like that. And they put more of their budget towards that because they're used to dealing with that. They want to make sure that it's all covered. Again, these are planning grants. They're planning grants. There's nothing, we're not going to be doing anything until these plans are in place.
All right. Anything else for Stuart? Yeah, Commissioner.
So can you, I know there's a grant that's gonna be paying for a lot of this, but what is the financial equation for Offit Lake and for Pattison Lake for this contract?
For them, it is a match, I believe it's
There's no,
approximately.
there's no match. There's no match requirement because they actually, Ecology pulled the match requirement. So they're basically getting $30,000 each for the development of these plans. That $30,000 basically pays for, plan development. And so then the idea is any extra costs, then the LMD funds are utilized to balance that out.
Okay, so then this, just to understand the financial aspect of it, so this contract is basically for 60,000, 30 for Offit, 30 for Pattison to do,
So the total cost for Lawrence Lake plus Offit and Pattison's is $236,000. That includes $110,000. We pay for it with $110,000 of grants, and the balance is going to be the individual LMD funds and where they have budgeted for these projects.
For example, commissioners, the IVAMP development for Offit is projected to cost about $54,846. So you apply that $30,000 of grant funding that came from the Department of Ecology, the LMD funds then will make up the difference of $24,846. So it's not match per se, but the grant does not fully cover the cost of the creation of the IVAM.
Yeah.
They do have to contribute LMD funding to make that happen.
thank you, and what's Pattison's?
Pattison's difference, their total would be $88,744 per the contract. So would be another, 58 to go towards that.
Because that also includes some water quality monitoring that they wanted done on the lake, which Offit did not.
So it increased the contract amount.
Thanks, Rob, for clarifying. I think you did a good job of putting it into perspective for the commissioners as to how the funding components equal those things.
And then, so 5488, and then that.
88,744.
And then how much is the Lake Lawrence?
Lake Lawrence is $93,287.
93,000?
93,287.
Okay.
And it's different scope.
And different,
right?
yeah, they're doing something
Yeah,
different.
they're doing something different. They already have their IVAMP. It's a different body of work. But as Stuart mentioned, to actually combine the contract into one, it was just more efficient to do it that way.
Yeah, we have two separate highly qualified project leads, but they assist each other. And so I think we're in good shape. Again, this is planning. And so Mr. Trowbridge, we've told him and others, you need to be part of the planning and have input. The new thing right now is we're getting information from residents about mechanical harvesting, and that's great, because apparently there's a provider here in the county that can do that. Well then, great. We need to discuss that when we start planning. Does the group want to go down that road? What does the public think about that? Those kind of things. Because in our integrated pest management program, the whole intent of that is not to apply herbicides unless we have to, you know what I mean? So if mechanical harvesting appears to be workable for Offit and Pattison or necessary, then yeah.
Commissioner Edwards.
And I guess just to the county manager's question about clarification of what's kind of how the history, one other piece of it is that lake bottom, the whole lake bottom thing. That there's been some discussion about, I just let it go at that. I mean, that is one more piece of it.
Appreciate that, Commissioner. And the letter that Stuart referenced that was sent out did address that and acknowledged that concern. So hopefully that there's a greater understanding.
Stuart, we're tight on time, but could you say a sentence or two about what a cyanobacteria management plan is for Lake Lawrence? Like, how is that different than what they've done before? What they're trying to get?
Yeah, there's phosphorus control plans, there's cyanobacteria. So cyanobacteria has been an issue, obviously, in Lawrence Lake as it's eutrophied or become more eutrophic. And so the idea would be to develop strategies to reduce the incidence of cyanobacteria blooms, within the lake. That could be.
Is that the toxic algae we hear about?
Toxic algae.
Okay.
Yes, those algae that produce toxins.
Okay. Anything else for Stuart before we move on?
I just as a history item for what Stuart's talking about is, I think one of the unique things about Lawrence Lake is these problems were all, I'm going to say, started more than 100 years ago with sawmill activity and the remnants of what's left from sawmill activity. But above and beyond that, they actually ran the Deschutes River into Lawrence Lake for, I don't know, for 20 years or whatever it was, as a holding pond. So it really got a lot more sedimentary deposits put in there over that period of time. And the reason they did that was the water was held there so they could generate power for the city of Olympia.
And then they redirected the river away from the lake at some point?
Eventually they did, yes. They took
28. It was
they
tall.
Wow.
Yeah, they dug a
1908 to
canal.
1928.
They dug a canal, ran the river into the lake as a holding pond. And then at some point, they put an end to that.
Huh.
I mean, the lake would have filled up eventually and turned into a swamp quicker than normal. So it's a little bit more of a problem created by a lot of players that are no longer around, but to benefit.
But they didn't know. They didn't.
Yeah, they didn't.
They didn't.
No, they weren't being nefarious or anything. It was just, that was the way life was.
That's the way it was.
That is the reason that Lawrence Lake has a little bigger problem.
Like, right, you're
One
talking
of the
about
reasons.
Black Lake. Black Lake's inlet and outlet was
Same.
the Black River, and now it's some ditch that goes into Capitol Lake instead. Wild.
It was a different time, and they were doing their best to take care of people and to grow food and, cut down trees for sawmills and make jobs, But now the realization is that, these lakes were impacted a lot of time by sawmills. There's a lot of organic debris that's settled. And as, it's a source of nutrients to the lake. So unless you shut it off, it'll continue cycling. So like in Black Lake, our project we're discussing with you is we can shut off the external, but it doesn't matter in terms of the lake because it's the internal recycling of the nutrients from
already
the
there.
sediments. It'll keep doing that unless you, apply phosphorus control, essentially.
Well, there's other ways.
There's other ways, or not dredging because it's
Sucking,
ridiculous.
well, sucking all that material out is a way. But
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next up is amendment number 1 to ESD 113, Youth Cannabis and Commercial Tobacco Prevention Program Contract. This is item 7G, and Gretchen Toller.
Good morning, Commissioners. Gretchen Toller, Division Director with Community Wellness at Public Health and Social Services. This is an amendment to our contract with the Capital Region ESD 113 that funds our tobacco, cannabis, and vaping prevention work. And the ESD found that they had underspent funds from across the region, so they offered our department an additional $9,000 to be used through this contract year, which ends June 30th. And so these funds will pay for additional public education around tobacco, vaping, and cannabis. We've already got something lined up to do a pretty big campaign for that. And then overall, this contract pays for strategies in the prevention of and the reduction of youth initiation or use of tobacco, cannabis, and vaping. You may recall that we use these funds to pay part of 2 different staff members that partner with community organizations and schools in these efforts. I'm open to any questions you may have.
Questions for Gretchen? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public Works is up. 2, Matt. 8A contract award for Marvin Road upgrade phase 1.
All right. Good morning. My name is Matt Unsman, Thurston County Engineer. Ben Infield, our Senior Civil Engineer in our design group, will be presenting this item next week. Public Works is recommending that the Board of County Commissioners award the Marvin Road project to Active Construction Incorporated. We received 8 bids, and Active Construction was the lowest responsive bidder at $5,860,860. Construction will come from a variety of funding sources, including 3.75 from the state's Transportation Improvement Board program, 1 million from developer mitigation, and the remaining will come from our Transportation Impact Fee program. This project was prioritized from our Transportation Capacity program. The project limits extend from 22nd Avenue on the south side to Union Mills Road on the north side. Access control will be provided at Union Mills, and a roundabout will be installed at 19th Avenue, which is the entrance to McAllister Park. The project also includes shared use pedestrian and bicycle paths on both sides of the road. With that, I'd be able to answer any questions.
Questions on this project? No. All right. Before we jump to 8B, it's 10:44. I see Travis is here. And I know we asked him to check in with us at the tail end of these agenda settings to see if any legal issues have come up. Nothing has come up this morning, but yesterday at Commissioner check-in, we did have a question. We had a discussion about a potential charter advisory vote, and Travis, the question was, if the board put an advisory vote before voters at any time, would a no vote on that advisory vote create any sort of limitation to bringing it back at a later time? Commissioner Edwards gave an example of a certain type of, you had an example of, if you do this, you can't bring it back for 6 years or something.
I believe it's the state constitution on moving a county seat or state offices or something that takes a vote of the people. I think it says you can't come back, if it fails, you can't come back for 4 years, I think. I was just wondering if something similar applies to when you ask about something like, are you interested in looking into a charter? If it fails, and it fails by 1% or 10% or whatever it fails by, is there any restrictions that say you can't bring it back the next year or for 2 years or 3 years or anything like that? We just didn't know the answer to that. Is that?
Yeah, and Commissioner, offhand, I don't know if I have an answer either, but I can certainly research the question. And just so I'm clear, what kind of action would the board be taking in this hypothetical?
The hypothetical is an advisory vote to ask voters whether they would like the commissioners to initiate the collection of freeholders for creation of a county charter.
Creation of freeholders. Yeah.
And so in terms of talking about timing of such an advisory vote, it came up whether there would be if it was negative, does that
prevent future opportunities
to ask the same question to the voters in a 5-year period or a 2-year period, or could you just keep having an advisory vote every election for the same thing? I mean, what are the rules of engagement on something like that?
Or is there a constitutional prohibition that would create problems? That's what it sounds like.
Nope, and no massive rush, but that's the only issue that's really come up in the last couple of days.
And I think, didn't Clark County do something like this and something failed and then it waited? Did they finally go to charter?
Yeah.
They've got a charter. I don't know their history prior to that.
It might be worth just asking somebody down at Clark County, because I think they went through it.
While you're doing research, I have a similar question on an advisory vote. Like, I'm much more interested in addressing our capital facility needs and the kind of long-term capital needs. If we did an advisory vote on building a new courthouse and the advice came back as no, would that preclude us from putting it on a ballot?
Okay, so both scenarios are advisory votes.
Yep.
But a little bit different context depending on, Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Forninger's question. I can certainly look into that a little bit more, for sure.
Thank you, Travis.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, let's go back to our public works items then. Next up is 8B, on-call engineering and professional consulting services.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here for Karen Weiss, and our request is for the award of on-call engineering and consulting services contracts to the 11 top-ranked consulting firms following a competitive request for proposal process, and to authorize the Director of Public Works to execute each contract and any amendments up to a 10% contingency, approve option renewals, and execute individual task orders. Just some background information. The RFP was advertised in the Olympian and posted on the Thurston County Contracting Opportunities web page on March 7th. On April 8th, we received 19 responses from consulting firms. We had a committee of in-house staff evaluate and score the statements of qualifications, selecting the top-ranked firms to place under contract, thereby creating a roster of the 11 qualified firms. The contracts, we're expecting them to be 5 years, including a 2-year base period and 3 one-year renewal options. The ceiling amounts for each of the consultants is based on the service categories awarded and our planned projects. As presented at the board briefing on May 20th, these consultant contracts are intended to augment and supplement staff technical abilities for design and engineering services in 8 service categories, and it allows for quick response to emerging needs and emergencies. So awarding this group of contracts is going to allow for a streamlined process to award individual projects or task orders for design and engineering services on an as-needed basis. Public Works will conduct a second-tier evaluation and negotiations of the individual projects to ensure the best consultant is selected to perform the work at a reasonable price. And the funding for the individual projects will come from various resources. With that, are there any questions?
Commissioner Edwards.
The dollar amounts designated here, is that for the total of the 5-year contract, or is it annually or what?
That's projecting for the 5-year contract, but we also have a provision in there if the projects increase that we can go back to the board and ask for an increase to those ceiling amounts.
Okay. And it's up to, we're not really saying anything about expenditures at this point, but up
Correct.
To a certain amount.
Right. Yeah, it's just a projection.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Covers that item. Let's go to 8C, resolution for temporary closure of Wattle Creek Road Southwest from 90th Lane Southwest to 86th Lane Southwest.
All right, this sounds familiar. It's because you are familiar with it. Marcus Storvik, our senior civil engineer, will be presenting this item to the board next week. The Board of County Commissioners previously approved a resolution in early April to close a portion of Wattle Creek Road for 4 weeks during a period extending from May 6th to June 30th. The first day of the closure was originally scheduled for June 3rd. However, before the work could begin, we needed PSC to relocate some utilities, which was last Monday. The night before, we got the atmospheric river, and we had outages in the area. So PSC had other priorities that they needed to respond to, so we got delayed. So Public Works is requesting approval from the board to close the portion of Wattle Creek Road from 90th Lane to 86th Lane between June 14th and July 26th. Public Works is also requesting an additional 2 weeks in case we encounter unforeseen circumstances, but we're hoping we can open the road after 4 weeks. Access to private properties along the project will not be prevented access. This section of Wattle Creek Road has an average daily traffic volume of a little more than 700 vehicles per day. The total detour is 14 miles in length. Stakeholders that were previously alerted of the closure have been notified of the revised closure, and we'll communicate out the new revised closure today, or actually next week if approved. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions on the road closure, Commissioner Edwards?
Nothing about this one, but are we gonna hear something, Vince, you're in the hot seat, about Kellogg? Are we gonna hear anything about that today?
Director Walker put an email together yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, I just wonder if there wasn't information there.
So I can provide an update on Kellogg if you'd like.
Is that okay, folks?
So, just for situational awareness of where Kellogg Drive is, you go out Johnson Point, and then you come off of 72nd Avenue, and Kellogg Drive is a dead-end roadway off of 72nd Avenue. There's a 3-foot culvert that is not too far from the sound. It has about, based upon the survey topo, it has about 25 to 30 feet of fill on top of it. So it's not a Green Cove issue, but it is a significant issue. We've contacted Fish and Wildlife. We're gonna be given an emergency HPA to go out with a contract just to replace the 3-foot culvert. With that 3-foot culvert, we are gonna be conditioned that we have to come back at some day and put in a permanent structure that's gonna meet Fish and Wildlife stream crossing guidelines.
Is there anything new to report from the helpful email that Director Walker sent out?
No, that email is up to date.
Okay.
So will you keep us posted if there are any developments?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so we're on the Wattle Creek Road. Any questions on the road closure? Shifting the dates and extending to 6 weeks. Hopefully it'll take 4 weeks.
Hopefully it'll take 4 weeks, yes.
Okay, and let's go on to item 8D. Reject all bids and resolution calling for sealed bids for Thompson Creek Road Southeast, Thompson Creek Fish Passage Project.
Okay. Marcus Storvik will be presenting this item to the Board of County Commissioners next week. Public Works is requesting that the Board of County Commissioners reject all bids for the Thompson Creek Fish Passage Project and re-advertise the project. We only received one bid, which was $1.315 million, which was more than $200,000 higher than the engineer's estimate prepared for the project. After talking to contractors, subsequently, they expressed concerns that the work could not be performed within a single fish window. So Public Works is recommending that the Board of County Commissioners reject the bids, allow Public Works staff to revise the project specifications so that we give a longer period of time next spring or this fall to perform some of the work that is not within the stream limits. So when that fish window arrives, they can focus on just the bridge replacement project itself. As a refresher, this project includes replacing a 10-foot culvert with a 70-foot prefabricated bridge. The bridge has already been purchased and will be arriving at our Tilly yard here shortly. The removal of this barrier will open 10 miles of upstream habitat benefiting adult and juvenile coho salmon, cutthroat trout, and steelhead. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
On that question.
Sure.
On the delivery of the pre-ordered bridge. isn't there a place closer to the site than bringing it to Tilly and?
Well, the nice thing about Tilly is we have the equipment there. And we actually have the room.
Okay.
And we can keep secure eyes on it too.
Is somebody gonna steal that bridge? That's what I was wondering.
They couldn't steal it, but
I'm sure it's happened at some point.
I'm sure they could cut
London
pieces
Bridge
out.
is down in Lake Havasu somehow.
Okay, just one.
Fair point though.
Thank you.
Okay, then that covers B. E is a similar item. Reject all bids and resolution calling for sealed bids for Johnson Point and Hawks Prairie Road intersection improvements project.
So Brian Meyer, our design manager, will be presenting this item for your consideration next week. Public Works is requesting that the Board of County Commissioners reject all bids for the Johnson Point and Hawks Prairie roundabout and authorize Public Works to re-advertise the project. We received 5 bids for this project. We have $2.7 million of federal funding to go towards the $3 million construction cost. Because it's federally funded, the Washington State Department of Transportation administers the contract. So WashDOT established that the contract provisions include 16% of the work be performed by a disadvantaged business enterprise, otherwise known as a DBE contractor, and that 400 hours of training be included in the contract work. This, the second low bidder protested the bid because the low bidder incorrectly filled out the required bid submittals for DBE and training goals. The WashDOT Office of Equity and Civil Rights held a protest hearing and determined that the submittal error was minor in nature and should not discredit the low bidder's bid. The second low bidder has filed an injunction preventing Public Works from awarding the contract because WashDOT has determined them to be non-responsive in the past for making similar errors. Public Works has determined in consultation with legal counsel that rejecting all bids and re-advertising the project is in the best interest of the county. It's anticipated that the work to construct the roundabout could still begin this fall if the Board of County Commissioner authorizes Public Works to re-advertise this project next week. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So you're just trying to keep us out of legal trouble, basically.
Yeah. We would essentially be going to court trying to defend WashDOT's decision.
Why don't we go back out to bid and get the same results?
We've been told that the Office of the Equity and Civil Rights Office is making corrections in how they make determinations on evaluations for DBE and training goals.
And in the email that we got from the director, it said both of the actions that we've talked about here were developed in consultation with the prosecuting attorney.
Yes, sir.
So that kind of answers my question about beating rules and whether we have the right to proceed in this way, and it sounds like we do. So, any other questions for Matt? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go on then to the last substantive item for next week's agenda, which is Superior Court Treatment Services Contract Amendment. And we don't have Superior Court here. The item is proposed, the action proposed is to move to approve an amendment to treatment services contract with Pierce County Alliance for $20,000 and authorize Superior Court Administrator to execute the contract in any amendment that does not exceed 10%. I know this is an extension of what we've done in the past, because I remember Pierce County Alliance coming up in this context.
So Commissioners, per the AIS, they are looking to amend by adding 20,000 to the current treatment services contract, thus increasing the contract total from 58,942 to 78,942. The contract period of July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2024 remains intact.
All right, then I'm not gonna, unless commissioners have specific questions they want to tee up, we'll just address this again next week, and I'm not hearing any particular concerns, so We'll have commissioner reports, and I will bring that agenda to a close. Next up is proclamations and awards. Clerk Board Davis is here.
The board. There are no proclamations for review today.
I did want to mention for the board that I'm the day after the June 18th meeting is our Juneteenth holiday, and I have we're not doing a formal proclamation, but I did have a short statement to read to just sort of honor the Juneteenth holiday. And so I'll be doing that, and if commissioners want to add anything to it, you're welcome to do that, and then that'll be done right after the awards.
Commissioner, if I may, there are two, per the agenda, there are two public hearings
that we
scheduled
didn't
for
cover.
next.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's on this last page, Chair.
I missed that. All right, so before we go on to advisory boards, you can sit there, Amy. Don't move. We have a public hearing at 3:30 for Ziply Fiber telecommunications franchise and a public health one regarding the HUD plans, which I don't think we've ever gotten a public comment on that, but on either of these type of topics. But Nicole, anything to add?
As you mentioned, I have a little speech here for Ziply, if you wouldn't mind entertaining me. So Nicole Martinez, President Fiscal Manager. Yeah. Ziply Fiber Pacific is seeking a non-exclusive franchise agreement to construct and operate or maintain fiber optic telecommunication lines and system facilities within Thurston County's right-of-ways for the purpose of providing telecommunication services. RCW 365540 requires a public hearing to be held on franchise applications. In accordance with said RCW, notices were published twice in the official county newspaper and posted 3 public places within the county seat. If after the hearing, the board deems it to be in the public interest to accept the application, the board may grant the franchise and enter into a resolution to that effect. So Ziply currently has facilities in the county, does not currently have facilities in the county's right-of-ways. The company intends to build a network throughout the unincorporated parts of the county, beginning with the areas adjacent to Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater. They intend to provide telecommunications and internet services with speeds ranging from 50 megabytes per second to 5 gigabytes per second. The proposed franchise is very similar to other telecommunication franchises that the county has entered into. It is for a term of 10 years and contains obligations regarding Ziply's construction and maintenance of its networks, protections against damage to the county and third-party property. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Questions for Nicole? Okay. Then let's look at item 2 under public hearings, which will be public hearing for the fiscal year 2024 HUD Annual Action Plan and performance of the Commerce CDBG Coronavirus Funds. Alex Pierce.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yes, we are asking you to hold a public hearing on the 18th regarding our annual action plan that we submit to the Department of Housing and Urban Development yearly. This is program year 24, which is our second annual action plan in our 5-year consolidated plan, which we adopted in 2023. The annual action plan identifies the specific projects to be carried out that year using Community Development Block Grant funding and Home Investment Partnership Act funds. This year, for the 2024 year, the City of Tumwater selected CDBG funds projects, and those are listed in your AIS. And we have selected one project to receive the Home Investment Partnership Act funding, and that award was approved by the Thurston Affordable Housing Advisory Board. So in total, our CDBG funds amount to $1,229,319, and our home award is $857,343. I would also like to add that this public hearing, we have 2 items that are kind of going to this public hearing. The second one is regarding the performance of our Community Development Block Grant coronavirus funds that were awarded through the Washington State Department of Commerce. So in 2021, Thurston County received $340,752 to use for activities to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus in partnership with local service providers. We subawarded those funds to the Thurston County Food Bank to increase food assistance to low to moderate income individuals during the pandemic, and also to the incident management team at Public Health and Social Services to carry out a quarantine and isolation activity to provide space for homeless individuals to isolate and quarantine while affected with COVID-19. So in your packet, you have a closeout report. So we are closing out this grant with the Department of Commerce, and we're required to hold a public hearing on the performance of these funds.
Okay, any questions? Thank you for that summary. Appreciate it. We'll take that up at 3:30 and probably need to interrupt the Board of County Commissioners meeting because it's a fairly long agenda. Okay, so then going back to this morning's agenda, let's go to advisory boards and commissions, item 3.
A second application was received from Jessica Thrift of Olympia for the Timberland Regional Library Board of Trustees. Jessica is an active library advocate and a devoted library user. I've also just received during this meeting a third application for TRL. So I will distribute that application after this meeting for your review. So next Tuesday, we can discuss how you'd like to move forward.
There's one vacancy?
One vacancy.
In the past, we've actually done interviews, kind of like we did for the Board of Health, like short interviews. I don't know. The 2 applications I've seen are pretty powerhouse.
They're good applicants,
So it's
yeah.
like we may need to go through that kind of process. If not, I might, I don't know, it's up to the board, but I'll probably want to interview them myself if we're not going to interview them as a board, just because these are 2 really, really super qualified applicants. And the third one might be as well. Okay, well, we'll talk about that next week. Yeah. All right, so be ready to kind of discuss that next week. PO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Commissions Manager. I have no specific updates.
Okay, any questions for Megan? All right, then that brings us to the end of the agenda. We're not gonna have time for commissioner items. It's 11:09. Let's take till 11:15 because we've been going for several hours, and then we'll start with our appointed directors at 11:15. Good.